Alright, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching the show. This is the Average Sports Show, and today we're going to be talking about the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to begin next. So, the regular season ended yesterday in the National Hockey League, and the next thing was the first round of the playoffs, who would be in it, and how the Stanley Cup playoff tree would look, and then we'll do a brief kind of description to anyone who's new to hockey of how the Stanley Cup playoffs work and how it's somewhat and how there are differences between that and the regular season. So we'll talk about that. But first, I did make a mistake in my last video. I was talking about my favorite teams in college football. University of Georgia is my favorite. They have 4 national titles. I said they had 3. They have 4 national championships. I forgot to include 1942. So that's why that's written on there. And then the whiteboard, I write down for me so I don't lose track because I get really scatterbrained and I'll forget stuff. But I also have a laptop and a notebook to have notes on so I don't forget stuff or miswrite something. So I will be looking at my laptop and make sure I write down everything on the whiteboard correctly and don't say the wrong information. But so that's why I have the whiteboard and I have a whole other laptop and computer that I'm using for notes. Alright, so moving on. Alright, so in hockey there are 32 teams and 16 teams make it into the playoffs. So there's 16 teams in each conference. You have the Eastern and Western. And out of the 16 teams, or out of the 32 teams, they're broken down into the 8 teams of 4 divisions. So in the Eastern Conference, you have the Atlantic and the Metropolitan. And then in the Western, you have the Pacific and the Central. So 8 teams will get sent. Now, this year, if the season ended right now, it would be 4 teams per division. But it can happen where you can have 5 teams in the Metropolitan and 3 in the Atlantic go into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you can have 5 of one division go into the Stanley Cup playoffs, but 5 is the max. But last year's Stanley Cup playoffs, there's 4 in each division that went in, and then today there's if the season ended, there's 4 of each division. I'll double check myself, but I want to say yeah, it's 4 just like last year when the season actually ended. So we're going to start with the Eastern Conference. So let me get that set up, please. And I try to make it where you guys can see the whiteboard and see everything better. I got some more lighting than my garage, which is my YouTube studio / storage space. Just depending on what activity I'm doing at the time. Alright, sorry, ran into some computer difficulties. You know, my computer is really frustrating. Well, you can't see me too well on camera, I apologize. My normal place. Alright. So that's how many teams get sent to the playoffs. So the playoffs work, there's 4 rounds. You have your 3 rounds, so in the first 3 rounds, it's all Western teams versus Western teams, Eastern teams versus Eastern teams. And then the 4th round is the Stanley Cup. So that'd be the best team in the East versus the best team in the West. Let's see who wins the Stanley Cup. All 4 rounds are best of 7, so you have to win 4 games. So every round you have to win 4 games and move on to the next one. So if you want to win the Stanley Cup as fast as possible, you can win it in 16 games. Get a sweep every round. When you go to Game 7, and it takes you to max to win the Stanley Cup, you have to play extra 28 games. Excuse me. So it's an 82-game regular season, and if it took you 28 games to win the Stanley Cup, that's 102 plus 8, 110. So you can end up playing 110 games in an NHL season if it takes you Game 7 every time you win the Stanley Cup. So a very long season, and that's why sometimes even the better teams get knocked out. The season's very long, depends on who gets hot, how many injuries players have, and sometimes eventually seasons just wear on a team, and one team will just get energy and the other team will just lose it. So yeah, so hockey playoffs, very intense, very long, so is the regular season. A major difference between the playoffs and regular season, before we do this, is the overtime. So in the regular season, the overtime is 3-on-3. So there's 3 periods in hockey for everyone that's new to hockey, and they're 20 minutes each. So if you're tied after 3 periods, it goes in overtime. In regular season, the first overtime is 5 minutes, 3-on-3, and it's sudden death. So whoever scores in that 5 minutes first wins. And if no one scores in those 5 minutes, it results into a shootout. And a shootout is just one skater versus the opposing team's goalie. And it's pretty much just a skill competition between that skater and that goalie. I'll make a video more about the shootout at some point. The shootout is really, really cool and one of my favorite things about hockey. I'm happy they put it in years ago. But that's how the regular season overtime works. Now, in the playoffs, after 3 periods, if the game is 2-2 and it's tied, it just goes right back to 20-minute periods until the first team scores again. So it's sudden death, but it's 20-minute period. And you could play extra 2 to 3 periods if no one scores in the playoff. But once someone finally scores in that one of those overtime periods, then they're the winner. So it's sudden death like the regular season, when it's 3-on-3, 5 minutes. But the difference is it's 20-minute periods. So yeah, the playoff games get very long if no one can find a way to score in overtime. Alright, so I grabbed all this. I need to write this down. We're going to do the Eastern Conference first. We'll do the top 8 teams of the Eastern Conference. Sorry. Double check. So I'm very tired. Woke up early this morning. I got to make sure I got everything right. Oh. Eastern Conference. And if I misspell something, I do apologize. Alright, so number 1 on the Eastern Conference is luckily my team for now, the Washington Capitals. They're ranked number 1. And then after this, for anyone who's new to hockey, I'll go over the point system. And I'll go over the total points so you can see how teams end up in their spots. Number 2 is the Florida Panthers, which if you've been watching the Stanley Cup playoffs in hockey the past 5 or 6 years, so should be no shock. Now number 3, still Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 3, and if I'm kind of out of frame, I apologize. I couldn't be. I did a lot of work yesterday making sure, no matter what I'm used to, I won't be cut off the frame. Well, if I am, I apologize. Number 4 again, I've been watching hockey for the past 5 or 6 years. Tampa Bay Lightning, but both Florida teams are in the playoffs if it wasn't in it today. Should not be shocking. They've been doing good the last 5 or 6 years. And that will probably be a video someday of Florida dominance the past 5 or 6 years in hockey. Alright, number 5 is the Carolina Hurricanes. Number 6, coming in, the New Jersey Devils, which have one of the coolest logos, in my opinion. There. And number 7, we got the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then finally, 8th on the list is the Ottawa Senators. Alright. Oh yeah, real fast, forgot to say earlier. So in hockey, a lot of sports there's always a wild card team. In hockey, your wild card teams are 7 and 8. So the last 2 teams that make the playoffs are your wild card teams. But in hockey, like I said at the beginning, every team has the same amount of games they gotta win each round. So being the top team or being the wild card team, you all have to play the same games. There's no bye weeks in hockey. There's no wild card team space, and then whoever wins gets to face the next opponent. So that's one cool thing about hockey is some people say that too many teams make it, half them make it into the Cup playoffs. But because of the format, in my opinion, it evens out having half the teams make it in because no one really gets the advantage. Yeah, if you're the first two teams, you get to play the weaker teams, but you still got to play 7 games or 4. You still got to win 4 games against them, and then next round win 4 games, and next round win 4 games. So I think it kind of evens it out because of that. And then yeah, no one gets a bye week, so it's not like you get first place, you get the extra week to recover. You go straight into it when everyone else does. So I like the way the hockey format is, and hopefully it stays like that. So there's our top 8 teams. If the season will have ended, now um, I'll go over their points. So I'm just gonna read the points off. Well, actually, no, I'm writing down. It'll be a little easier. All right, so those are the 8 teams. So now I'm gonna write down how many points they have and explain that to anyone who's new to hockey. And then we'll draw the playoff tree and explain how that works. That's a little cramped, but it'll work. Alright, so the way the point system works in hockey, for a win you get 2 points. For a loss you will get 0 points. Now if you go into overtime and you lose, you get 1 point. So 2 points is the max you get. You lose in overtime, you get 1 point. And if you lose the game in regulation where it doesn't go to overtime, you get 0 points. Now we'll add for your combined points, and that will determine where you end up in the top 8 of the team. Alright, so yes, so for Eastern Conference, the top 8 teams, here's all their points. So again, 2 points for a win, 0 points for a loss, and 1 point for overtime. Now I'll give you your total points. So, number 1 was the Washington Capitals. They're 62 games played, 40 wins, 14 losses, 8 overtime losses, for a total of 88 points. Number 2 is the Florida Panthers. They got 62 games played, 38 wins, 21 losses, 3 overtime losses, 79 points. I apologize, my handwriting is not good. Number 3 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. 62 games played, 38 wins, 21 losses, 3 overtime losses, for 79 points. Alright, 4th on the list is Tampa Bay Lightning. They have 61 games played, 36 wins, 21 losses, 4 overtime losses, for 76 points. Then we have the Carolina Hurricanes. They had 62 games played, 36 wins, 22 losses, 4 overtime losses, for 76 points. And then for number 6 is the New Jersey Devils. We got 63 games played, 33 wins, 24 losses, 6 overtime losses, for 72 points combined. Number 7, the first wild card team, is the Columbus Blue Jackets. 61 games played, 30 wins, 23 losses, 8 overtime losses, for 68 points. And if today was the end of the season, the Ottawa Senators, again, would get the last wild card spot with 61 games played, 31 wins, 25 losses, 5 overtime losses, and then 67 combined points. And that's the standings. So how it works is for the playoffs, the Washington Capitals are first, so they would play the Ottawa Senators since they're the 8th team, the last team to make it in. Number 2 Panthers would play number 7, the first wild card team, the Columbus Blue Jackets. So that's how it works. The top 2 teams, they get to play the bottom 2, and it's always 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. But we will put this up on the board and how the first round would look for all. Erase this. Then in the first two rounds, the teams that are not, well, in the first two rounds, sorry, I apologize. If you have teams in Atlantic or in the Metropolitan, they will play other teams into Atlantic and Metropolitan. In the first round, in the wild card, it doesn't matter. It's 1-8, and then 2-7 against each other. But the other four teams, um, they'll play the opponent in their own division. The Metropolitan versus the Metropolitan team, or Atlantic versus Atlantic team. Alright, so here we go. So this is how the first round will look like. You got the Capitals versus Owl, 1-8. Panthers versus Blue Jackets, 2-7. Atlantic or Maple Leafs and Lightning are both into Atlantic, so they'll play each other. And then you got Hurricanes and Devils, who are both in the Metropolitan, and they'll play each other. That's how the first round will go. So, just to have fun, what would the second round look like? We picked a team already. So, let's see. Let's see who wants to work. Alright. So let's say in round one ends, Capitals win and knock out Senators. Who would they play? Well, we got Hurricanes and Devils right here. So let's say the Hurricanes beat the Devils. It would be Capitals versus the Hurricanes in round two. Now, pick that. Alright, so let's say the Lightning beat the Maple Leafs in round one. Who would they play in round two? Let's just say the Panthers won. So both four teams just became what they've been doing and winning the playoffs. The Panthers knocked out Blue Jackets. We have Lightning versus Panthers. So that's how that works. So right here on the side of the board. Caps versus Kings. And you would have Panthers versus Lightning. And then how home ice advantage works is whoever has the most points. So, for example, Capitals are the better team that had the most points in the regular season. So, Capitals would play the Kings, and it's 7 games. So, it'll be 2 games at home, 2 on away, away, home. So, the home team gets 4 games at home. The home team, but the team with the most points gets 4 games at home and 3 on the road. So, the same thing, Panthers versus Lightning. Panthers had a better regular season, had more points overall. So, they would get the first 2 games at home. Next 2 on the road, home, road, home. So that is how the home ice advantage works and how the 7-game format works per round. Alright, so now we'll do the third round just for fun, and then we'll move on to the welcome top. Third round, I got on my little chart, I got just not to be biased, I got the Kings to win against the Capitals, and I got the Panthers to win. And then the winner of this will go to the Stanley Cup for the last round. So yeah, so the Kings are in the Metropolitan, the Panthers are in Atlantic. So now finally, teams that are playing in different divisions. In the wild card, the first round, you can have a wild card team play a first or second place team in the same division. But other than that, usually it's other than the wild card and the top two teams, usually the first two rounds is always in the same division. Unless you have that weird 5-1 division and 3 in other division. And that's how that would work. Alright. Now I apologize if I'm moving fast or a little scatterbrained. I stayed up late last night getting ready for the video. I woke up early to get the video done. I do apologize. Alright, next will be the Western Conference. Alright, so for the Western Conference, the first place team is the Winnipeg Jets. Apologize for moving the whiteboard. Second place, you got the Dallas Stars. Coming in third is the Vegas Golden Knights, who've been incredible ever since they became a franchise, and Vegas loves the Golden Knights. Every time I went to Vegas, once they became a hockey team, you can't go anywhere without seeing something related to the Golden Knights. Coming in number 4, Minnesota Wild. Number 5 is Edmonton Oilers. Number 6, Colorado Avalanche. Another one of the coolest logos in hockey, in my opinion. And then number 7 is the Los Angeles Kings, LA Kings. I apologize, my whiteboard is moving on me. And then the last wild card spot is the Calgary Flames. If anyone is new to hockey, you wonder how many teams there are in Canada, I have that interesting note. So, there are 3 teams in Canada that are in the Atlantic, 1 in the Central, and 3 in the Pacific. And right now, we have Winnipeg Jets, that's the 1 Central team that's in Canada, and then Calgary and Edmonton are the 2 in the Pacific. The third one in the Pacific is Vancouver, but they're not in the top 8. So you got 7 teams that are Canadian in the National Hockey League out of the 32, and they're in every division but the Metropolitan. Metropolitan's the only division in hockey where all 8 teams are in the U.S. So that's a little fact for today. Alright, so that's our top 8 teams. Let's do the points again, and then we'll see how the hockey rounds work. Alright, so starting back out, number 1 was the Winnipeg Jets. 62 games played, 42 wins, 16 losses, 4 overtime losses for 88 combined points. Number 2 was Dallas Stars. They got 61 games, 40 wins, 19 losses, 2 overtime losses, and 82 points combined. Number 3 was the Vegas Golden Knights with 61 games played, 37 wins, 18 losses, 6 overtime losses for 80 points. Number 4 was the Minnesota Wild. We got 62 games played, 36 wins, 22 losses, 4 overtime losses for 76 points. Number 5 again was Edmonton Oilers with 61 games played, 35 wins, 22 losses, 4 overtime losses for 74 combined points. Colorado Avalanche. We got 62 games played, 36 wins, 24 losses, 2 overtime losses for 74 points. Now, if you're wondering how Edmonton is higher than Colorado, yes. Yeah, Edmonton's higher than Colorado, even though they're the same amount of points. Edmonton has played one less game, and because of that, they actually have, well, they played one less game, so that helped them out. But if you notice, they have only 22 losses compared to 24, and they had 4 overtime losses compared to 2, so they got more points because they lost more games in overtime than losing in regulation. So if they're both 62-62 and have the same point system, it would most likely be the one that's above the other team would be because they have more overtime losses than regulation losses that um, give them be considered higher. So that's how it works if they had the same amount of games played with the same point system. That's where your overtime losses kind of either hurt you, or overtime losses can help you, and your regular losses can hurt you. So number 7 is LA Kings. In 60 games played, 31 wins, 20 losses, 9 overtime losses for 71 points. And then coming in at number 8, last wild card spot, is the Calgary Flames. 61 games played, 29 wins, 23 losses, 9 overtime losses, and 67 points. Alright, so that's how that works. So let's move on to the playoff tree. Alright, so Western Conference, round 1. Number 1 Jets will face the last place wild card, the Flames. Then you got number 2 Stars versus the wild card team, the Kings, first wild card team. Then you got it would be the Knights versus the Oilers. They're both in the Pacific Conference. And you got the Wild versus Avalanche, and they're both in the Central Conference. So that's how round 1 would look. Now, we'll move on to round 2. Let's see how that would look. And again, as people didn't see earlier, the Knights had a better record than the Oilers, but they would have home ice advantage. So first 2 games at home, 2 on the road, home, road, home. So in round 2, we would have Jets versus the Wild. So the Wild knocked out the Avalanche, and the Jets beat the Wild. Or Jets beat the Flames. But then we would have the Oilers play the Kings. The Kings upset the Stars, and the Oilers knock out the Knights. So for round 2, we got our Central team, our Central Division teams, Jets and Wild, and we got our 2 Pacific teams, Oilers and Kings. So that'd be round 2. That's how that would work. Oh, I forgot to write a 2 on here. All right, so if round 3 would happen. So round 3, let's say the Wild won, they beat the Jets. And let's say the Oilers won and they beat the Kings. The Wild had a better record, so the Wild would have the home ice advantage. So it would be using my opposite hand. Probably wasn't going to do. Let's do that for my right hand. I'm actually left-handed. So in round 3 would be your Wild versus your Oilers. And whoever won that will play the Eastern Conference team for the Stanley Cup final. And that's how the playoffs work for hockey. So yeah, like I said, there's only about 20-something games left per team. So it is right around the corner. and I will do videos on the playoffs. My idea is for the first round, I would pick from each conference, so one round for the Eastern, one for the Western. Which one I think would be the most, I guess, the most interesting to watch, the most entertaining. Then the same thing, the second round, one Eastern, one Western Conference round teams. I'll pick whoever I think will be the best games to watch for each conference. And then round three, I'll just pick if I think the Eastern Conference Finals or the Western Conference Finals is going to be better games to watch. And I'm just trying to pick which ones I think might have the most likelihood going to like a game seven or every game is close. That's just my opinion of what I think is going to happen. And then when the Stanley Cup happens, I'll pick who I think is going to win, give some reasons why, and then we'll just see how many times I was right and how many times I was wrong. And then we'll just talk throughout the whole playoff of what's going on and who's doing what. So that's the plan for the playoff. Then again, I'll post as many videos as I can with my schedule. But that's the plan. So looking forward to that. But as always, like and subscribe, and then I'll make my next video as soon as I can. Good morning, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching it. And hopefully everyone had a good day. Bye.